I have to go in the middle to start. This is my starting spot.
Yeah, you're live.
Hey, and we're live.
Cool.
Hey, Jeff.
You're not coming through this yet.
So, oh, no, we're not doing.
There you go.
All right, now we're actually live. Now we're live in the store and online. We were live online a minute ago, but now we're live. What is that, though? It looks so good.
Chicken pesto.
Oh, pesto. That's what it is. Looks good. Okay. Making me hungry. You also have pesto? Or are you waving to the people at home? Oh, you're waving to your friend. Okay. Good. We were waiting for you. That was my delay. For some reason, too, I got a stool today. I'm not sure where that came from. Hey, Fernando. No, we can give it to our model who Fernando already introduced me to, but I've already forgotten his name. Velson. Love that. Is that really your name?
Yes.
Awesome. Anyways, welcome to ONSET. I am Daniel Norton. This is Dave. And today we're doing Speedlights, which is always a fun one. Did you change your hair color?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Thanks for noticing.
It's very nice. It's like bright. Yeah. People, well, I guess people at home know there's an audience here, right? So that's. I always wonder. Oh, by the way, we stream every day at noon. This is why I talk about the people at home. I'm not like having this like fantasy that maybe it is a fantasy. I don't know. I know that my mother watches, so at least we have one viewer, and she seems to like it. Occasionally, Dave's family checks in. Maybe I'm not sure. No, not really. But yeah, we're working on it. Anyways, today we're doing Speedlights, which is always fun. We're doing portraits with Speedlights, as it would be. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk through some techniques of using small flash to make portraits. Because I think that it was interesting. I was just having, I'm going to give a shout out to somebody. Today's all about the shout outs. Beowulf. By the way, one of our customers here is Davis Beowulf Sheehan, who's an amazing photographer. Look him up if you're at home. Don't leave to go look him up now. He's a customer here at Adorama, and he came in and we were talking about it. He's like, "You're doing Speedlights today." Because he, uses broad color, whatever. He shoots a lot of dancers and stuff. But we were discussing how, like, the idea of just having Speedlights is so important, no matter what. Like, you always just have them. You got them in your bag, whatever. Maybe you're starting out. Maybe this is all you've got, right? But even somebody who has equipment, who's been around a long time, that has it, still uses Speedlights sometimes when it's necessary. Because number one, they're small, so you can always keep them with you. And really, they give you a lot of power relative to like space that you might be in. Sure, if you're standing in the middle of the desert and it's bright sun, a Speedlight's not going to be able to overpower that. But in most buildings and stuff, you can literally make the space dark, which we'll show, using Speedlights, which means you then take control of your environment. If I come in to make a portrait of you, and the light is junky and I don't want to use it because I'm in an office building, or even if there's windows, and people always tell you there's good light in their space, but yeah, good for what is what I always say, but. So you want to have some control over that, and Speedlights will give you that essentially in your pocket, if you have big pockets. So I don't know. You can put it in your pocket. It will probably stick on the top. Maybe not a lot of Speedlights. One Speedlight in your pocket is probably fine. You start having a bunch of Speedlights in your pocket, you're gonna have a problem.
For sure.
Yeah, they will definitely fit in your camera bag though, which is probably where you keep them anyways. So anyways, so we're going to walk through this, and I always start off with Speedlight days, really basic, and then we build up. So we'll go that way. I'm going to go relatively fast at the beginning. It's okay. Do you want to come up and talk, or if you're going to sit in the front row, you probably shouldn't have a conversation. Okay. If you want, I'm going to go relatively fast in the beginning. If I'm going too fast, let me know, because I want to get right to it. But number one, I will walk through some of the equipment I'm using. I will try to do this throughout the whole session, but I often forget. So if I'm using something that you have no idea what it is or I don't say, please ask. I will tell you. We are using a Canon 5DS today. SR.
So it is.
The R stands for extra. That's the one without the AA filter, I think, or more pixels or whatever. But it's a Canon camera, DSLR. We have a 50 millimeter lens on it. This is the 50 millimeter 1.2 L. Why would I choose this lens? That's just the one they handed me because they just give me a lens, but it should work out fine. It is a nice lens though. And on top we have the Canon Speedlight 600 EXRT. There is an RT2 now, but we're not using the latest because I grabbed it out of the used department because I didn't want to, I didn't have any new product to show for the demo. Yeah, this is why we do our shoots here, because all the equipment is just available to us. So that's so shiny back there. I'm being distracted easily. So that's like our basic setup here. We're going to eventually use multiple flashes and take them off the camera, and we'll go through all that stuff. But we're going to start off as most simply, as always, with a single flash on camera. We are tethered into Capture One, into my MacBook, so that you guys can see everything that's going on as we go. So you're going to see the process. If you've not been to one of these before, you'll see how we kind of operate. I don't just show you a finished retouch picture and say, hey, this is how you do it. We're going to walk through and we're going to actually create the pictures here. So we have Velson. I love that. It's so good. What's your last name?
D'Souza, but you don't want to know the real one.
Okay. That is a long last name, D'Souza, but you don't want to know the real one.
If
Okay.
he knows the real one, do you have to kill him?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Kill him by this.
D'Souza. Is that Portuguese?
That's Brazil. Would be Portuguese. Souza is Portuguese.
Yeah, Souza's Portuguese. When I'm from Massachusetts, and if people don't know that, and there's a really large Portuguese. Yeah, I think they're more from Portugal, but in the southern part of Massachusetts, down by like the New Bedford area. So where I went to college. So the name sounded familiar. I don't speak Portuguese at all, but if somebody speaks Portuguese to me, I will nod. All right, so we've got Velson. He's going to, maybe you can sit.
Yeah.
You didn't know you were going to get to sit, did you?
Yeah.
No, it's nice.
It's easier.
And as always, when using Flash, the first thing we want to do is take control of our situation, because again, that's one of the powers of Flash. So in order to do that, we need to remove from our environment all the ambient light. Essentially, we want to make an exposure that is black, right? Like if you were to turn your camera on automatic right now and take a picture, it would work. I mean, there's lights here, he would be lit up. We don't want that. We want all that light to be gone. And since you can't always just turn off the lights, or someone has windows or whatever, you can overcome that by using a speed light, or any kind of flash really. The way that you do that is there's a couple of things you always do, and then the third thing we'll kind of work around. Number one, you always set your ISO at the lowest it'll go within its normal range. So in this case, 100. That's going to make it, need more light to capture an image. So making the ISO low is going to work for us. You want to make your shutter speed high. You want it to be as high as you can go within the normal sync range of your camera. Now, there is such a thing called high-speed sync. We're not going to talk about that. So pretend like that doesn't exist for these. Every once in a while, we do a seminar that talks about more advanced flash stuff, and we start talking about that stuff then. But let's assume that we can't go over that normal sync speed, which with this camera is 1/200th of a second. That means these two things. Do you need a seat? Or you sure? All right, can I get one for you? All right. We're going to set those numbers in, right? It's always, no matter where I go, those two numbers are always fixed. It's 100 ISO, 1/200th of a second for this camera. The third factor in your exposure triangle, as they say, as I steal from Mark Wallace every single time because he does the little thing, is your aperture, right? So what do you set that at? That depends on how much light is in your space, right? If you're somewhere that's relatively dark, you could be more opened up. If you're somewhere that's very bright, you're going to need to close down more. Essentially, you just need to make this black image. Now, for us, because we're here all the time and I kind of know, we usually set it around f8, and that works for us. I also now there's a couple different ways to do this, because the one way to do it would be to just set your camera at f8 and take a picture. And if it's black, then you're probably good to go. Then you could try, let's say, 5.6. And if it's still black, okay, you can try f4, and you can do it that way. If you do f8 and it's got an image, then you go to f11, keep going until you get rid of it. The other way to do it, if you want to be a little faster, is you can use the meter on the top of your camera, or wherever it is on your camera. It's got a little plus minus thing. Just look at the meter and dial in your aperture until it's at least at -3. So your camera's telling you you're 3 stops underexposed. So when you photograph it, it should be black. At least that gives you a starting point. So if we're there, I think Dave already did it. He's doing something now. I can see it moving around. Basically, Dave just made a photo, and we can see that our space is black. That means that if the flash doesn't fire, we are not going to have an exposure in here. The final thing that I like to do, and you can obviously do this if you're tethered a lot easier, is to look at, this is capture 1, by the way, if I didn't say that. This gives me the ability to manipulate my images as I bring them in. We're shooting raw, obviously. I can go into this section here, which is kind of my adjustments, and I can grab my exposure slider. This is what you would use if you shot a picture that was under or overexposed and you want to fix it a little bit. But what I'm going to use it for is I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to slide it over until I start to see him. I'm seeing a little bit back there of his neck, and we're about 2.5 stops. Before we start to ever see anything on his face, we're over 3 stops, right, of overexposure. That's pretty good. I like to keep it around 3 stops. Underexposed, because you may want to do some shadow recovery, so you don't want to be right at that border, right? As long as it's black, you're fine, really. But I try to be a little bit like extra black. Yeah. So this is totally fine. F8's good for us. If I need to go to 5.6, it would probably be okay. Why would I need to go to 5.6?
Bigger space.
Bigger?
Shallow depth of
Larger
field.
space that's absorbing the light.
Well, yeah. I mean, if a large, oh, because you're backing it up, you're saying,
No, no. If you're shooting in a large room,
right?
the largeness of the room also swallows up some of the light, underexposes the subject that you're aiming
If you're bouncing from the walls.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, well that kind of makes sense once we include the flash, right? Because we know we're going to add the flash. If we were working in a larger space and we wanted to bounce the flash, and the walls are far away, we would need to be more open. For basically, right? The short, I guess, answer there that's more universal is that you would open up if, let's say, your flash just didn't have enough power, or you didn't want to run the flash at maximum power. So let's say I needed to shoot fast because I knew my subject was going to be reacting and I wanted to be able to shoot fast, and my flash recycled really slow at f8, then I might want to shoot at 5.6. You may also do it if you wanted some shallow depth of field for whatever reason. I like to shoot my portraits, as people probably know if they've come to any of these, at like 5.6 f8. So I don't normally do that even if I had all the light in the world. So that's not really an issue for me. But if you like to be more wide open, that's another reason to do it. So yeah, but I'm going to leave it at f8 for now because I think we'll be okay. Now we're going to now add the flash. Flash uses, and we're going to use this throughout the entire day, a system. All modern flash, I say all, but I'm going to say all. I'm just throwing it out there. All modern flashes have. I mean, I'm wondering if because Hasselblad uses an Nikon one, right? So yeah, all the modern flash systems have what's called TTL on some level. TTL means through the lens metering, right? What that means is it's using your camera's meter to set the flash exposure. If you didn't have that, if your flash was only, let's say, manual, and now I'm going to stop right there just to make things clear. The camera is still on manual. The flash is on TTL. That's an important distinction there. It doesn't mean you have to have your camera on automatic. I mean, you could, but what it means is my camera's on manual, my flash is going to automatically give me the right amount of light based on what I tell it I want it to be, which I'm telling it what we want f8. So anyways, the way TTL works is it uses your camera's metering system. So essentially, in an ideal world, if we just turn the flash on and put it on top of the camera and we take a picture, it will just give us a picture. He'll be well exposed. The other one will be happy. Or maybe not. I mean, it's hard to say. Right. Well, he's not happy with this shot. You can only improve from the black frame, right? So you got.
There may have been a blink there.
Yeah.
That's
Nice.
No, it's good.
Perfect. So there you go. Thanks for coming. It was good. I think you learned a lot. No, so we can see now that the flash is giving us an exposure that it feels is correct. You may look at this, and by the way, I'll also point out to people who are new here, these are TVs, not monitors, so they're not exactly right with the exposure, and they're also two different exposures. And yeah, what you probably should do is stream while you're sitting here with me. You should stream it on your phone because you'll get a better color.
But not the wide.
Are you having spot focus?
Yeah,
Focus.
Spot?
I was in spot.
Yeah, focus.
Spot
Focus.
everything.
Yeah.
Eyes?
So basically, this is giving us what it feels is the right exposure. If I look at this and I think, let's assume that we like the way the light looks for a second. If I were to look at this and say, hey, you know what, I think he looks too bright, because sometimes that'll happen, or too dark, I can make an adjustment. What I do is I do what's called flash exposure compensation. And the way it works is it's essentially a ratio. You're going to say, hey, TTL, because I always talk to my equipment, that's fine. You don't want to make it feel bad. But you know what, I think I'd like it to be a little bit darker. And then what you do is you then give it a number. You might say 1/3 of a stop, you might say 2/3 of a stop, 1 stop, whatever you want. And what it will do is it'll read the amount of light that it thinks it needs, and then it will give you 1 stop or whatever less light than you need, than you feel like you need, or than you feel like it need. It feels like you need, is how I should say it. So the reason why I like to point out that's how it works is because it's not such a straight thing as to say, hey, and that's over now, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So I went.
So we can go, the first exposure is what TTL believes to be the correct exposure. The second one is underexposed by 1 stop, and the third one is overexposed. And the reason why it's important to think of it like this is because every single time that you take a photo using TTL, it remeters. Okay? So it's metering every single time. That's why you're not saying go down one stop, you're saying one stop underexposed from the TTL reading. This is just as important because if you start using manual flashes and you turn the flash down one stop, and he doesn't move, it'll pretty much do the same thing. But the beauty of TTL is, depending on where we go, if Dave backs up, if Dave comes closer to him, if he decides to bounce the flash or whatever, assuming it has enough power, it will always try to give you the right exposure, right? It's always remetering. That's why with the TTL flash, it's great if you're like, let's say, doing an event, because I can walk up and make a photo of you two, and then I can get like a shot over there of somebody over there, and it will give me the right exposure because it's metering every single time. So this is one reason why if you're doing something that needs to be super consistent and isn't changing, some people like to use manual. Because if you set your flash manually, it will always give you the same amount of light. That's your difference. For portraits, I think TTL works 99% of the time. Yes, sir.
You set the light on manual or set the camera on manual?
Right, the camera is on manual always. I'm saying and sometimes you may want to put the flash on manual if you don't ever want it to change. There's times where that becomes important. Hey, did you get your Leica? No, not yet. Okay. There's times when that becomes important. I'm jealous. That's why I want one.
Do you do compensation on camera on these 3 shots or on flash?
Yeah, it is flash exposure compensation.
Okay.
I mean, if you're using, see, the thing is because the camera's in manual, there is no regular exposure compensation. If you were in like aperture priority, you could use regular exposure compensation, but then it's going to affect your whole room. There's all kinds of weird math that people used to do when TTL didn't work well, where you'd like overexpose the camera and underexpose the flash. I mean, you know, it's pretty accurate now, so I don't think you really have to worry too much about that. Okay, how's that? How we feel about that? That works. So now this isn't that attractive of light. I think you'd agree. Right? Okay, good. You know, it's a small source. It's directly on the camera. It's creating a hard light. Hard meaning that my shadow edges are very abrupt and drop off really quickly. We can see that here. We see the shadow line, right? It's also just in a funny place. A hard light might be nice, especially on somebody who has a nice square jaw, or somebody who doesn't have a square jaw and you're trying to make it look square. But directly on camera, it's not always the best option. You're getting a lot of...
Look at that shadow in the background.
Yeah, and also we get the shadow in the background, which is not necessarily... I thought he had grown a beard or something out there, or grew his hair longer. But yeah, he's also got a crazy shadow in the background, which you will definitely find, you know, if you're relatively close to the background. Now, if we love this hard light, but we hate the shadow, the solution will be to get the light off the camera, right? Because the shadow is going to fall wherever the light is not. So if my light is here, then the shadow is going to be there. If I don't want the shadow in the picture, I can put my light in a place where the shadow will be out of the shot, which we'll do as we move forward. Before we do that, though, let's start with the flash on camera and let's just make it nicer. Generally speaking, for portraits, having a soft light source meaning that my shadows kind of feather out, is going to be more flattering. You make a light softer by making it larger. Hard lights are small, soft lights are big. So the simplest way to make it softer is to bounce it off of something. We could try to bounce it off the ceiling. We may run into that situation that you had brought up where there's not enough power. We'll see. And again, we're using TTL, which means that we don't have to make any changes on the camera. We're just going to take a picture, and it will try to give us a proper exposure.
It could not.
It doesn't have enough power. But even if it did, let's take a look at this. Okay, so what's wrong with that? Yeah, he's completely right. Our light is coming directly from above. If you're going to bounce a light off the ceiling, you have to take a few things into consideration. The first one is how tall is the ceiling, right? The second one is how close are you to your subject, right? If I'm this close, even if the ceiling was low, it would basically be a top-down light in almost every case. So it becomes tricky to get the light exactly right. Better is if you're going to be further back and you want to bounce off the ceiling, might be to like tilt the flash slightly so you're bouncing it. Think angles, right? You want to get the light into his eyes. We could probably do that. Yeah, we could back up and do that. We don't have a zoom lens today, so we're going to get nice.
Be very bright.
Yeah,
again.
it still will not be very bright because of the...
Even less so.
Yeah, or what if we bounce it off the back?
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have a whole...
Again, we're not going to be able to probably get a proper exposure, but we can also bounce it here, right? If I shoot it at this wall, which is gray, this wall will become my light source. right? That wall becomes my light source. It moves forward. It lights him up, in theory. You know, assuming he was lit up. But even with that, you can see, again, I'm dragging this to get a better exposure. It's better, right? But it's still very, very, very top lit. But just let's take a quick look at the shadows. See the shadow? See the difference? This light's softer. You see how the shadow edges bleed out? Okay. We're starting to see, by the way, the warm light on his shoulder because I pulled my exposure up. So we can't do that. So what can we do? We're in a place where the ceiling is relatively high. We want to make this portrait. The next step for us, and the most simple thing to do, is to create our own ceiling/wall. Hey, Peter. Oh, man, your stuff is upside. See? Peter, by the way, is the rep for LumaQuest, who makes a lot of cool things to go on flashes, which we're going to use in the next session, but he came for this one, of course. Unless you want to go up to my desk and get them. Okay. Yeah. I was running around this morning. We were doing, I can't say because it's top secret. Just watch our Facebook channel. So we can make our light source larger, right? One way to do that is with one of these pop-up reflectors. People have these. They've seen these before. They fold down really small like this. How small they fold down? Yeah, I bumped myself. How small they fold down? 1/3 their size. Okay, so that's always the stock answer to that because people always ask how small they fold. I don't know, 1/3 the size. That's how small. Which apparently is smaller than you'd think it is. 1/3 the size doesn't seem that much smaller, but it's much smaller. It's 1/3. So now we can take this and let's say position it in a place. Yeah, let's start that way. Like let's go straight above. And again, if we go straight up, it's probably going to give too much shadow. But if we were to, we can tilt this slightly, right? We can give it an angle. Dave can bounce the flash slightly. We can create a light source here, right? Whoosh, I can get blinded. Boom. Now he's lit up more, right? And already we're getting we have enough. The important thing here is that we had plenty of light, right? Because before I was pushing it forward 3 stops when we were picking up. Right now we're back down to our fate with no improvement, even with his kind of, what do they call that? This part of the, he's got deeply set eyes, brow, yeah. Even with his nice formed brow, we still get nice light in his eyes. Our shadow's starting to soften up a bit here. It is dark still, but we're definitely getting a much nicer light than we originally started with this, I think. Right, so far, okay, good. We want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
And because the light is bigger and closer, it also got rid of shadow.
Right, and also the direction of the shadow is now
it's higher, so it's
yeah, the light's higher, so the shadow is still there. It's just behind him, right? Now that's super simple, and you could easily do that yourself, right? Dave could do it himself. Because you don't believe me, I say that, and people, Dave will do it himself.
well, okay.
He's going to make it happen. I'm not even going to look. I'm just going to assume Dave could do it.
Holding the camera that's easier, actually.
Oh, okay. However you want to do it. Don't screw it up. I already said you could do it. We don't have to do it from above. You can do it from the side.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's. I mean, it might be hard to hold it up from in that angle, but you could do it maybe from the kind of from the side,
Also do it.
or you could shoot through it like that. This is another option, right? I knew he'd come up with an idea.
Yeah. Easier to do with.
Yeah.
I know, right?
So what happens here, right? Now he's shooting through the light, the diffuser, and watch the diffuser when he takes the picture. Okay, I shouldn't have watched it because now I'm blinded. But did you see that the light fills the diffuser, right? The diffuser becomes the light source. And in fact, this is actually even nicer, right? Now we've got this like almost giant softboxy kind of thing going on, lighting up his face. And again, Dave did that all by himself, right? So if you're in a pinch and you only have one flash, it's on your camera, you could use your reflector. You can also control the angle of it. I'm not going to make Dave suffer and do it by himself every time, but you could also put it to the side. Let's do one like here, maybe. If you want to get a little, because you don't always want to shoot it from flat-centered light.
You were going to say side action.
Side action? You can get some side action? Does that mean something else?
Yes.
Oh, okay. No.
Got it.
All right, I'll Urban Dictionary it later. Nice. Ah. Oh, interesting. You see what happened there?
He's laughing about the side action.
Yeah, that's because some of
turn it
this, the edge of the speed light,
Let's try it again.
hit him. He got hit by 2 lights there. You can actually see both lights in his eye.
Now we should.
It's like magic.
Now we should not.
Yeah, there we go. Now we just have the one. And again, there's a shadow there because of the angle of where the light is. You know, and again, you can figure that out wherever you want to go. You can move it around. But if you wanted more like a side lit shot, I mean, you could put the light, like put it like over here.
What I can do.
And then he can zoom the head. Remember, the head on your flash automatically zooms as you zoom your lens, right? If you have a zoom lens on your camera or whatever, if you put any lens on your camera, and the flash is capable of doing it, it will set itself at the optimal zoom head. The zoom head inside will set itself at the optimal place to give you the right amount of light, to make the flash the most efficient. In other words, if I put a 200 millimeter lens on my flash, it zooms the head, right? It makes the beam of light very narrow to give you the most light. If I put a wide angle lens on, it spreads the light out really far. It will automatically set it at the same setting as your camera. Hope you get the little thing going on again.
Yeah.
It'll automatically set it at the same zoom setting as your camera unless you tell it otherwise. And you can. This is a 50 millimeter lens. We're saying, hey, it's at 50. If we wanted to set it at like 85 or 105, it'll make a more narrow beam for us, which will help with the spread, if we want.
Can you put it up on different shots? Daniel?
Interesting.
Yep. I zoomed to 200.
Okay, so this is zoomed to 200. So what's happening here is that
Didn't have quite enough power,
it
but
doesn't have quite enough power because it's so focused, but we can actually see too that if you look at the shadow pattern, it's a bit of it's still soft-ish because it's bigger than the flash by itself, but the zoom of a 200 is making a much smaller circle of light on, because remember, our reflector is 42 inches, but if we only light up this much of it, then that's all our light sources, right? We need to fill the reflector if we want to get the full. Yes, one.
Can you try a shot from that side, just put up and put flash that direction? Which side? Just, yeah, that a little to the, more like on the back, yes,
Oh,
and put
yeah.
flat.
It'll look
flash
good too.
direction, that
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah, so you don't have to center it. You can put it a little bit off to the side. Sure, that will work as well. You have a lot of options. Remember, the flash is it still zoomed? Yeah, and there we go. So now we've got, again, it's only a little bit to the side. You can actually see by watching the shadow how it's moving, and we can put the light in a lot of different places by doing this. I mean, you don't have full control, obviously, or else you'd never need to buy anything but a reflector. But when you're by yourself, this allows you to make a photo like this, let's say, that has a lot more character to it than just having the flash on the camera, right? Just right from there. And that's just basic understanding of how the light works, right? That's all that really comes down to. Now, ideally, though, yes,
I got a question. So,
ask me.
being in it, like you said, say like you buy yourself, but you don't have it. What about, I've seen diffusers on the actual flash.
Okay, so the question is, yeah, right. I knew where you were going from there. So the question is, what about putting it on the diffuser on the flash on your camera? Well, LumaQuest is going to get mad. No. The bigger you make the light source, the better, is my answer to that if you try to make it soft. So by putting a softbox or whatever on the camera, it will make it bigger, so that will help. But you're not affecting its direction, so you're still going to have very flat light, right? So your shadow might still fall behind the person. It's better than not doing it. But in an ideal world, like let's say I'm doing a party. If I'm shooting a party, I'm not going to be taking the reflector and holding. I mean, obviously that's just crazy. You can't do that. So having those soft boxes and stuff that go on the flash, the small ones, while it's on your camera is better than not having it. But in an ideal world, I would go off if you can. Yes.
Two questions, one involving that. There's a diffuser that goes on those, not a soft box, but an actual kind of plastic diffuser.
That's what I was told.
You do that,
You know, with the little tiny thing,
Yeah.
Yeah, little Stokies and stuff.
the Stofin. No, he's talking about a softbox.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a Nikon flash, when you put a diffuser on it, it clicks in
Yep.
and it makes it so the light is wide angle. When you're saying to move your flash to like a 200 millimeter, it's focusing the light, but the output theoretically is the same. In other words, f8 is f8, at either 200 is just more condensed.
Yes.
So you're saying
Right. So that was too good. So let me try to summarize it. I think so you can get it back to you.
Save power by just
Well, power or I'll explain that because it's good. That's a good question. But first of all, let's talk about that first thing first. There is this thing in flashes. That little thing that flips down in the front. Not this. Not the little white thing, but the little plastic thing. That, I don't know, I think they do call it, yeah. Oh, no, that's something different. I'll talk about that in a second. You're talking about that too?
Yeah, that's the one I was talking
Oh, that thing? Okay, sure. This spreads the light out wider for when you use wider lenses. That's what this is for. So if I put a 14 millimeter lens on my camera, the widest this flash goes without this thing sticking out is like 20 or something. So I put this out, it spreads the light out wider. That's what that does,
Does not
right?
make it softer at all.
It doesn't make it softer because you need to make it bigger to make it softer. What the Stofan thing, I call it Stofan because they I don't know, I think they did invent it. I'm saying they invented it. Stofan. Stofan is like one guy in his basement in like Idaho or something that makes these things. But they basically make the little diffusers. What that does is this, it gives you a bare bulb effect, okay? So the reason why that softens the light, if you want to call it that, is that if I take my flash, can I borrow yours? Because I don't have one. They stole mine. All right, so I have, it's on too. You know that? He doesn't mess around. So I put this thing on top of my flash. What it does is light hits this, right, and bounces out in all directions like a torch. Okay? The reason why that's effective is because, thank you, is if I'm in a room and I do that, some light goes forward, some light goes up, some light bounces to the walls, and light bounces around. It gives a more naturalistic look in a small space. It doesn't really technically make the light that's coming out of the flash softer because, like, if you point it at somebody with that on there, it doesn't do much at all. In fact, it'll flare your lens if you're using a wide-angle lens. What that does is it creates almost like its own fill light because the light's bouncing around in all directions. So, yeah, those are super useful, and some people also leave them on there when they put the flash into, like, soft boxes and stuff because it helps get the light spread out more even. I will say this, though. For what we were doing just then, you wouldn't want to do that because what would happen is, remember, we were having this problem here
The double shadow.
with this double shadow. That's because light was coming out of the sides of the flash. So that's going to just make that even worse. So you wouldn't use it in that case. But sure, if you have that and you're, let's say I'm in a small space, an office or something with low ceilings, and I want to do a bounce flash, then sure, I would leave that on. It's useful and it's free. Usually they come with flashes. So, and then if you lose it, you buy the Stofan, which is like $5.
I'm always trying to bounce your flash. You never want to use like flash head.
If you're making a portrait, I wouldn't probably use your flash head on. If you use it, I mean, I never say you never want to do it because there's certain times. If you're a photojournalist, red carpet, you know, something's really far away, yeah. Because the reality is that light gets softer by making it bigger, but that's relative to the subject. So if I have a softbox that's, let's say, this big, right, on my flash, that might be useful if I have it this close because it's making it much bigger to that guy. But if I'm photographing this gentleman in the back that's 20 feet away, this to this doesn't matter. You might as well take it off. You're just wasting power. So yeah, so it depends, I guess is the answer to almost every question that I ever on your situation. But yeah, so let's take the flash off the camera though. Yes.
I recently
That.
got this,
Yep.
this little white thing here. If I'm-
I draw pictures on it and stuff.
Yeah, now,
Smiley
do
face.
you think that this is, would this be effective in reducing the amount of shadow? If I just shoot it up?
You could have used that. We could have used that if the flash was turned in the right direction, but it wasn't to do if we were shooting vertical. What that does is essentially it kicks a little bit more light forward, usually giving a better catch light. So if you're bouncing the flash off the ceiling, the idea is it's supposed to give a little bit more light forward. It's not that useful, to be honest. I mean, I found, my opinion is that it's not that useful, and I don't really ever use it. But if you like, people used to tape business cards on there, which I thought was a good idea because then you always had business cards, right? Because then you just take a business card and give it to somebody as you're going. By the end of the event, you have no business cards, and then you go home. That's basically your thing. But sure, it doesn't. Anything you do to your light is going to do something. How much of a difference it makes, you know? Like I would use that if I was doing events, maybe if I didn't have the other thing, just because I wouldn't want to be blinding people behind me as much, and that will prevent some of that. Or you could use it like a flag, or it gives a little bit of a catch light. So there's reasons to do it, but it's not the most useful tool. Like in a business card would do the same thing. A business card would be better actually because it's bigger, and you have business cards if you do that. Okay, so let's take the flash off the camera, right? So almost all the systems today have some kind of a remote capability, which is really, really useful. You could also buy some kind of just remote trigger, radio trigger to fire a flash. Some of them will give you TTL, some will not. We're using the Canon system with the Canon trigger, so it will give us TTL. This is STE3, right? That's the new one. I'll even hold it up for people because I get a camera, I can hold stuff up. So this is STE3. Basically what this does is all these capabilities that this can do, I should say, are basically the same thing that my flash could do. You can also use one of your flashes to be the controller, if you will, which is super useful if you want to make sure you have a flash on your camera for whatever reason. In our case, for a portrait setup, we're not going to use on-camera flash at all, so this is about half the price of buying a flash, so it's useful for that. It really depends on your what you do. You're capable of setting up zones and channels with this. Channels will help differentiate you from other flashes. So I'm shooting a wedding. I want to have multiple photographers. We can be on different channels so we don't set up each other's flashes. Zones will allow you to control groups of flashes so that you can set up things like my front light, my hair light on different zones, which will allow you to control their ratio, right? So we're only using one flash, so, you know, whatever. It is what it is for right now. So now, immediately, taking this flash, we can suddenly come in and now we have a little flash. And remember, we're using TTL, right? Which means I can just take this flash and go like this. Right? And it should theoretically give us a decent exposure. It's a bit hot. Why is it hot?
Because it was point like it was close to me.
Well, that's part of the reason, but also because he's in such a large space with so much darkness around him, and the camera, even on spot meter, is trying to give you an overall exposure, right? So even if it's like focused on his face, half his face was black. So really, if you think about it, this plus this equals gray. It's like those cookies they sell at the Grand Central. I just made that up, right? I'm going to use that, put that in my thing. But if I take the flash and I point it more in a more even direction, it should do a pretty good job exposing his face, exposing your face. Right, so, and there we go. So that's a little bit more gray because, again, now I'm giving it more equal. Yes. You've never had one of those cookies. Sometimes they're lemon, right? And then sometimes they're like, you like the lemon? It's weird. Sometimes they're lemon and sometimes they don't have any real distinct flavor. Like vanilla, I guess, is the flavor there when they're not? Yes, tell me.
Are the same settings on that as on that?
Yes.
Settings that you put on
Yes, so exactly. The menu system on the back of this one, it's in, they call it master mode for Canon, and Nikon calls it commander. Sony calls it El Capitan. Basically, whatever mode they want to call it, that's the same. Yeah, it looks exactly the same. So you can basically use this flash to control if you want.
You can also use a pop-up flash, right?
In some systems, you can also use the pop-up flash to control it, yes. So if you're just starting out with your small flash arsenal and you only have one flash, but your camera has the capability of having a pop-up flash, the built-in light flash or whatever they like to call it, mini cameras, that flash can be used as a controller. I say many because it's not every, and I never have a camera with a pop-up flash, so yes. I thought you were blessing her for a second because you were like... That's called STE3. Yeah, you're welcome.
The Nikon.
The Nikon one is called Nikon something something something. Nikon has a new one, which is actually really cool. So if people are Nikon shooters, they have a new little remote. It's a tiny little thing. We used it a little while back. Yeah.
So the Nikon version of this is the S.
Oh, the SU800 is the Nikon version. You are correct. But they do have the new one, which is really
new
cool.
one, yeah, which is really awesome.
Which I think we used last Speedlight Day. And it was actually pretty, if people use Nikon, it was pretty cool because we actually got it like 5 minutes before the event started and we were able to figure it out pretty easily.
Yeah.
So
And it
so
leaves
credit to
your-
them for
your
that.
Shoe open, which is cool.
Yeah, and it also leaves your shoe open because it plugs in the side. So if you have shoot Nikon, otherwise the Canon system is really good. Because Nikon just came out with, I say just, but it was within the last year, a radio. Before it was all line of sight, yes.
But the,
I figured out the official on the Canon and the Nikon one. What about like I said like I got flash. I got the flash one too. And
Nice.
How easy how compared to the like same amount of are they as good?
No. So, I mean, okay, that's always the question, right? So, are the off brands going to be as good? So that you heard my answer already. The reason why I say that is because they might be. I mean, sometimes good. They might do a great job for you. What I would say is that this technology is something the camera manufacturers create for their flashes. And when a third-party company creates something, unless they're doing it in partnership with them, they're basically backwards. What do they call that when they take something apart to figure out what it is? They're reverse engineering it. So that may result in a much better thing, but oftentimes it just isn't as reliable. So, but that being said, if that's where your budget's at, get what you can get. You know, it's like the thing is that not everybody can step up and buy, you know, a bunch of these Canon flashes right off the bat. Maybe you got to buy some used ones. Maybe you buy a third-party brand. You may hear lots of things about people really liking them, or the common things. Well, I could buy 3 of those for the price of, well, you know what? That's fine, but unless you buy 3 all at once, if you're on a job and it dies, you're going to be in trouble. So I'm super paranoid and a bit of a snob, so I try to stick with the brand, whether it be Canon, Nikon, Sony, Minolta, Olympus, Fuji, Hasselblad, Sony. I said Sony. Uh-oh. Yeah.
I haven't seen any other ones with the lithium-ion battery.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool little flash.
That's why I bought the flash.
100%. The Flashpoint makes a, I don't know what they call it. Maybe I think they call it lithium-ion. R2, yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. The whole side of it is like this lithium-ion battery, and we did use them for something, but I don't think we used the TTL ones, though. And they were okay. I mean, it is what it is. You know, it's just if you're going to become, put it this way, if you hardly ever use small flash, you just want to have one and you don't want to spend a lot of money, then yeah. I think if I'm going to make my system around it, I would probably devote more in the branded ones, because I think you're going to get more accurate TTL and such. Somebody's online right now talking about how Paul Buff has got great stuff, because that's always what happens whenever we talk about cheap stuff. Everything's good until you use the next level up. It's like whenever I buy a computer or something, I don't even look at computers till I'm ready to buy another one. Because yeah, it's great to use that flash, but then once you use something better, you're gonna be like, oh man. So stick with that and you're good to go. Anyways, wow, we have lots of editorializing today. Is everybody staying with me today? We got good. All right. Cool. We're cruising. All right, so we see how TTL works, right? And we see that it does work. Now, just because, let's add a second flash. I totally just jumped a step because I'm there,
Yeah, you did.
right?
Like we aren't even.
We haven't even modified this thing yet. We're just totally just using it like this. We can quickly add a softbox. So go ahead and throw that one in the softbox, just to mess with Dave. All right, take this one. Fernando does not want me to have the flash in my hand. I like holding it and just using it. It's fun. But you know, what's great about TTL in that sense is that in these radio systems that they now have, it used to be that you'd have a flash, and then you'd have a wire coming off your camera, you know, and you're running around events and stuff, and now it's all radio, so it's so nice. You can just go to an event, and instead of having my flash on my camera, I can just go like this. Which again, is beneficial with a tiny little softbox. Let's say I have this softbox here. This is the little easy box from Last Light. Everything's cool. It's all good.
One thing I like about the flash bender is you can turn it into a speaker.
Here's my thing about the flash bender, and this is completely me, you know, being me. I just feel like walking around with this giant flap on the top of my flash like this all day at a wedding is weird. I wouldn't do it. He's not giving me any money for it, but I'm a big fan of Gary Fong, to be honest. I think it's just simple and it works, and this is really cool. What is that?
It's the Joe version.
You can change that's cool. Oh yeah, this is the Joe McNally version. So it's got little things inside. We should ask them what they're for.
They're,
Well, they changed the color, obviously.
yeah.
So it looks like it has little, if you want to dress differently, this is one of those you know how, see, men will know this, right? They used to have like these jackets that just had the part shirt in there. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, yeah. That's what that's for. No, oh, this is a diffuser. What do they call that? It's called something. Where it's just a knot, or it's just part of a shirt. It's usually a turtleneck. You know what I'm talking about? A dickie, yeah, that's what it's called. I'm gonna start wearing those. I'm bringing back the dickie. Let's start a hashtag. I think it's too long. It has to be shorter.
Yeah.
Like more Dicky or something would be good.
I don't know what that one is.
Or Dicky 2017 or something. Dicky 17?
That sounds like a.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. Okay, so let's say that I have a little flashlight, little softbox like this, right? And this is like the question earlier about having on your camera. Again, if I'm far away, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But if I can hold this thing in my hand, right? So let's have one of the flashes again. So let's say I take this flash here.
Is that B?
I'll make it B. Oh, it is B. They've already made it B.
Nice. I said ball.
Yeah, if it hasn't been said already, this particular seminar, the trick here is to just have Dave set everything up. Then you're basically good to go. Makes me look good. All right, so this one's B. I'm going to stick it in here. It's a lot of straps. I don't know why, but okay. Now, I even put it on the right side up, so you get the marketing. So I can take this, right, and I could do this, but I could also, again, what I was doing before. Now it's bigger, right? This is bigger.
Let me turn off A.
Yeah, so we'll turn A off. We can A/B test. No? No. They don't all work. You got to be. Boom. All right. So now, bigger light source, right? There you go. So that's
And you, as the camera operator, can do it yourself.
yeah. Hard flash, bare flash.
Let me see.
Joe McNally baby box. It's actually kind of nice. Last Light does a pretty good job with this stuff. It's another one of those situations where, like, I'm sure this is not cheap, but look at that fabric.
No, it's fabulous.
It's beautiful. I mean,
It's forever.
yeah. I mean, Last Light should give me. And you know what I do like about this too? I'm like totally evangelizing Last Light here. They do good. I don't own a lot of Last Light stuff because it is pretty pricey. But like this is all replaceable too. So like if it doesn't, you can as it yellows in time, you'll. I'll actually tell you, I don't think I own a single product that's Speedlight specific because I don't use them that much. I mean, there's times where I use Speedlights and times where I don't. I use my regular softboxes just rigged up with Speedlights. That's how I do it. But if you're gonna build a Speedlight kit, this is pretty groovy. But here, go ahead. Dave wanted to do it himself.
Oh, no,
Oh, you already did.
Oh, he already did it.
Yeah, that's it.
So let me make a backlight then.
Okay.
So
Well, let's see the front light goes.
what we'll do here is we're gonna do a multiple light setup, right? This right here is a Westcott Apollo strip something 16. I try to say what stuff is as I go, and I probably write it down. Was 16 by 40 or something? 30, 16 by 30?
16 by 30.
Ideal accent for a hairline.
So this is by Westcott. Westcott makes a lot of these Speedlight specific products, which are really cool. This one opens up kind of like an umbrella, so it's a little bit quick to use. You don't need to have any special mounting rings or whatever. And you can see it just like sits in there. It's pretty cool. And they make them in all different sizes.
You got it the wrong way. Look at that.
Yeah, and also what's great about these is that instead of just shooting the light through the front of it like Fernando was doing, you can, and most people do,
That way, but
bounce the light into the back of it. That's kind of what they're designed for. When you use a softbox, generally speaking, you take your light and you stick it in the back, right? We see how that works. So if I take the front off the softbox, this is actually, it's good that when things happen, it brings up a good topic to talk about. If I take my flash, right, and I'm shooting it like this, the flash hits the diffuser in the front and basically starts to spread out, right? But depending on the size of my flash and the deepness of my diffusing, like how thick the diffuser is, that may create more of a hot spot in the center, which you might like, right? Some people like that. If you want it to be even, though, you generally need a deeper box or more diffusion, and Speedlights are one of those things, or that little Stoffen diffuser on the front would also help. When you're using a regular flash, like a strobe, the flash tube generally sticks out into the softbox and bounces around all on the inside. But you haven't got that ability with the Speedlight. It's sitting right here, right? So what the Westcott system does is it bounces the Speedlight back into the softbox, reflects around, then comes forward, making a much more even light source. That's kind of the big pitch for that system, which is really cool and pretty unique, I think, for Westcott. But if you don't have that, you put the little diffuser on there. Good. You can do stuff. Do you want to turn it off, or are you gonna?
Yeah, turn that one off first. And then
Okay. So we're gonna just start with the one light again. You look a lot like my old photo assistant.
Really?
Yeah, a little bit. Well, you just have that very standard,
Turn the other way.
like handsome dude
Yeah.
face.
Like years ago. Oh.
Yeah. I'll show you his Facebook. If you're watching, Alex, but you're watching. You don't look like him at all. Because, by the way, it's going to be like one of those things where I said that girl looked like the person. You guys would look. Yeah.
No, yeah.
No. It was the dude who looked like the greatest American hero.
This is one flash.
Okay, now this is the Westcott strip, right? We're able to place our box in an ideal position, like a little kind of classic 45-degree position. It's giving nice light across his face. We're getting, relatively soft light because of the size of the source. We can see our shadow is bleeding out. Also, you can notice we're getting a little bit of light in the background. It's not completely black back there because the light's spreading out a bit. And it's not too shabby, right? If we wanted to add a secondary light source, like a hair light, we could easily bring a second flash in. This is in the B group again. I'm just going to use this Joe McNally thing because that's what's on here. And I could just point it. Now, I was just Dave. Now, this is one of those times where I can almost guarantee you that the exposure is not going to be correct. Because the TTL system it doesn't know where the flash is really, right? It's expecting something. It's designed for this, right? When you start pointing it back at the lens and stuff, it can start to throw it off a bit. So we're probably going to have to adjust. But first we'll take a shot to find out because we don't know that.
That was probably a bit in the shot.
Yeah, it might be. It was in the shot, it'll be even more. Okay, so there we go,
A bit in the shot.
right? It's a little hot, and it's a little bit in the shot. But it might be hot because it's in the shot, so I'm going to back it up first. We'll take one more. I'll try to not get it in the shot.
Angle it towards me.
Okay.
Even though it'll potentially flare more.
Okay, so we're basically coming from the back. There we go. It's still a smidge hot, I think.
Yeah.
And again, TTL is giving you the exposure that it thinks is correct. You might agree with it. You might be like, hey, that was great. Or you might say, hey, it's a little bit hot, which is what I'm saying. There's actually pretty good detail there. I mean, I think technically it's not a bad exposure. So, but in my opinion, it's brighter than I would like it to be. Nobody's ever seen your face that close.
I'm discovering things about myself.
Yes. This is a journey of discovery when you come into business. So Dave can now tell the flash, hey man, that's pretty good, but I'd like it to be a little bit darker. I don't know, how much darker?
I'm going 2 stops.
2 stops darker. Now, the reason why this comes up again is why? You saw what I just did there, right? I walked up here, I moved it. I'm not going to put it back in the exact same spot. If we just turned it down and I didn't put it back in the exact same spot, I wouldn't get exactly the right thing. This is giving 2 stops less light. It's going to remeter. It's going to give us 2 stops less no matter what I do. If I come in closer, if I come further away, it's going to do that, right? So we'll see if 2 stops is what we like. Because I'm sure not going to put it back in the same spot because I wasn't paying attention.
Probably. I'm looking right here. Like with your eyes, maybe.
Right? And now should be darker. There you go. It is darker. Good. All right. Whew. You never know. Interestingly enough, it's still kind of bright. 2 stops even was not. 2 stops is not always what you might think it might be. So you'll get a feel for it. Like you might have thought 2 stops. That seems like a lot. It wasn't. It was actually perfect. I think. In fact, if anything, it might even need a little bit more. We did get a little bit on his nose, but that was my fault. Oh, that's really close to you.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid it by having
Yeah.
to look away from it. But
Yeah.
just
Okay, but you know what I like to do though, because I don't like to hold stuff in my hand the whole day, is just choose 2 of these strips. It's one of my favorite little combinations. So we could throw this light in the other strip. Do you guys have questions about how we're doing this so far? Is it making sense? We're adding a secondary light source. Yes. Okay. Here, let me give this to Fernando, and I will answer your question. Yes.
Often on them, he has like kind of a shine spot that appears on the nose. Is there a way to?
His nose is shiny
No, it's like not. If you
highlight
went
in
back
his
and it just consistent.
from the backlight.
No, before you started using it, it was there.
Oh, you're saying he's shiny? Well, yeah, he is a little bit shiny. Yeah.
a hot spot.
Well, that is what they call a specular highlight. So the way to turn that down, well, number one, I would probably say, hey man, your nose is shiny. And then I would have him wipe. He's probably just like, he's probably got to glow. I mean, it sounds silly, but that's the first thing I would do. When I used to do a lot of corporate portraits and like random portraits at offices, I would carry these little rice paper, you know what I'm talking about, right? So it's the rice paper, they have like a little bit of powder on it, translucent powder, and you just go up to the executive and be like, oh, right on his nose. They don't care. You know, you go, I'm going to do your makeup. And then you just, but no, you just take it. It's just a little shine. That's the first thing I would do. Because the simplest solution is what you should try first. That's always my philosophy. However, if you can't do anything about it, let's say he wasn't a nose, but he was rather a bottle or something, you could add more diffusion. More diffusion will help reduce specular highlights. Or you could make the light source larger, would also help with that just because it would spread the highlight out more. The way that Dean Collins, people know Dean Collins? Oh, yeah, you guys are so young. So the way Dean Collins used to talk about it was that when you're talking about the size of your source and stuff, is that if you have all this light in one spot, right, then it's a really, really bright spot. But as soon as you start to spread it out, it's still the same amount of light, right? So as you spread out the highlight, it becomes less bright because the same amount of light is still doing it. So bringing the lighting closer could possibly help, making it slightly bigger, or just adding more diffusion in this case would probably help. The one thing about these Westcotts is that they use very, very thin diffusion because of the whole bounce back thing. And the interior of them is silver, which does tend to give you a bit of specularity. So you could put extra diffusion. You may eat up a lot of light by doing that, so I would be a little bit wary of it. The first thing I would do, though, is blot his nose. But you don't have to. Now you're feeling self-conscious now?
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
He doesn't care. You can't bring him down. I mean, I personally like some shine in the skin, but again, that comes down to personal taste. If you felt like that was too much, again, there's detail, so it doesn't bother me. Even on his forehead, we noticed it from the beginning. That's the T-zone. T like that, right? Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. Good. What do we do?
For a shoe.
We're waiting for a shoe.
Or a foot. Whatever you want.
Oh. Apparently not. Wow, the alarm went off and you made a run for it. Yes.
The earlier photographs that you had, where you weren't noticing the deep shadows just beneath the nose, that was of course because the light was coming from above. But I see the tripod is set now. It's easy to raise that tripod, but you'd have to reset the entire thing to bring the camera down. And by bringing it down, you would have brought it even with the nose and had much less shadow or none at all at that particular point. Now, is there a reason that you're picking this?
You're
shot?
saying the shadow when the flash was on the camera?
When the that's right. When the flash was on the camera, and you were above, it was somewhat above the subject. Therefore, it cast a shadow on the lower part. But if you had lowered the camera more, so it was even with his face, you wouldn't have had that shadow.
That's interesting. I mean, it's certainly a solution. Of course, wherever the flash is hitting, you're welcome. Wherever the flash hits, right, wherever it's not hitting, I should say, is where the shadow is. So if I lowered the flash so that the flash itself was, I guess, even with his face, meaning the camera lower, then you may not get any shadow at all. It might be completely flat. That makes sense, sure. 100% that's true. That's what a ring flash does, right? However, shooting up at somebody is generally not the most flattering thing in the world. So I probably wouldn't do that, but that's just personal taste. If you like doing that, then feel free. But yeah, sure, what you're saying is 100% true. And a ring flash that's exactly what a ring flash is for. Or you could take your flash. I've seen people take flashes. They took my flashes away, so I can't do anything. Flash. I've seen people do this, especially because they work on radio now, right? Take the flash and go like that, right? Again, lower, so that it's not, it would technically need to be next to the lens, so it's always going to be slightly above it to get rid of all the shadow. But if you put it on one side, you're going to have a shadow on the other side. So
Then you're going to pick up red on it.
that could also happen, 100%. So I don't think that's the solution that I would choose. But what you're saying logically seems like it would probably work. Sure, lower the flash, and then the shadow would be the other direction. You also risk, though, depending on how he moves his head, the light being too low and then the shadows going up, which is never a good idea. So I probably wouldn't do that personally, although theoretically that sounds like a decent thing to try. Just not something I would try. or do on a regular basis. Yes.
I noticed that the diffusion on the soft boxes seem to be recessed about 3 inches or so. That's like to control the spill.
Right. So the question is about why there's the diffusion is recessed on the softbox. And an answer, because you gave the answer, is to control spill. Right. Basically, you help narrow the beam of light. Also, generally, with the recessed softboxes, they have, I think this one does too, yeah, Velcro on the inside so you can attach accessories like grids to make it even more of a spill kill. That's what that's for, yeah. Especially if you put your softboxes like sideways to the camera, you can completely make like lines of light essentially. So it becomes really useful. I think we're going to wrap because we're soon. Let's just get this last shot and then we'll take a break. So now we've got 2 flashes going on, right? And we've switched. Did you zero everything on or are you just going to leave it at -2?
-2.
Okay.
Still -2.
So we left everything at -2. We've now switched to the 2 strip boxes. Oh, somebody's making a mess over there. That's all right. Okay. So this light from the back, it's very similar.
It's still a little far away.
Yeah, because of its distance. Although you will notice, I think that unless I'm crazy, but I can definitely see it to my eye, this is a little cooler. And I think that's because the interior of the softbox is silver versus white. So the silver is adding a little bit of coolness. You know, it might be too hot. That's up to you. But it is hitting his nose though, so we just have to watch that. So we're going to turn the softbox.
Yeah, I'm also going to lower it just a bit too.
And also, can you go like this?
I'm like,
Yeah, there you go.
Have you ever had situations where you have 2 flashes, 2 more flashes, and like some of them are TTL or some of them are manual?
Yeah.
Sure, you could do that. It depends on your system. So the question is mixing TTL with manual flash. So it used to be a big problem. Modern cameras are pretty good at dealing with it now. It used to really throw off your cameras. I would use that mostly in the sense where I wouldn't like go like manual flash is my fill, TTL flash is my key. I think that might throw you off because its reading will be off. But if you do something like manual flashes on the background, that might be fine. Yeah, because remember TTL is metering every single time. So what could happen, and with older flashes, this happens quite a bit, is when the oh, that's perfect. I'll actually wrap with I'll end with this. Oh, nice with a little smile. So it's very stock photography right now.
Yeah, it is.
We'll sell that one. Okay, so TTL. Hold on, I lost my train of thought because he's all smiling at me over there. TTL, non-TTL, manual. Oh, the way TTL works, by the way, is that it uses something called pre-flash. So when you fire the flash, oh, interesting. It actually fires really briefly before it triggers the real flash. It's kind of like the way it meters. If you're using like optical slave manual flashes, that can sometimes throw them off. So because it will actually fire it out of sync. But if you're using radio remotes, it shouldn't be a problem, and you can totally do that. But of course, if you're using a radio remote, you have to have a camera that's capable of having the radio remote and the TTL flash in order to make it work. But you should be able to do it. I just probably wouldn't have them, be something that's like working together, like a hair light or a fill light. I'd use them like on the background. But yeah, you totally could do that. Or just switch all the TTL flashes to manual when you're working in that situation. Because obviously, most, if not all, TTL flashes can also be used in manual. Actually, all the better ones, like I should say better, like medium to high priced ones. The little tiny ones that you get are usually only TTL. But the ones that you'd use, anybody who's going to be serious about taking them off camera and doing stuff, like anything like that would have a manual setting. Yeah. Other questions, thoughts, concerns? Cool. Did we get a shot that his nose isn't shiny? We did, right? Is that better? He rubbed his nose. It's still a little shiny. You have a shiny nose, man.
Get rid of it.
Let's fix that. Yeah, makeup. Yeah, I mean, I think it looks pretty good though. It's nice and clean. I like it. It has a nice glow to it.
I'm sorry, is it okay if I switch this room?
You can. We're about to wrap.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna feel bad, like to end, like right when you first got here.
It's all right.
It's
Sorry,
okay.
I'm late.
No, it's okay. We're gonna
can
do
start
another
over.
session at 2:00. So yeah, we're gonna take a break, and we'll be back at 2 if you guys want to hang out. We're gonna kind of go over more of the same. If not, next week we are not doing something on Thursday. Did something get put in here in my spot? I think there's no event next Thursday. So if you guys just want to come and hang out, feel free. But I won't be here. You can come. You know, I'm sure Satish would be happy to have you. It's right over there somewhere. The week after that, we're doing dialogue. So if you guys are interested in filmmaking on any level or just want to come and see how it's done, on the 16th, we're going to produce a dialogue in the store. We've done this a few times. People have seen it. It's kind of fun. We actually shoot it live. And the actors act, and we shoot it, and then you see how it's produced.
We do.
Yeah, they do. They actually act. They don't just like stand there like this. Well, models just stand there, but actors act. Wise guys. And then the week after that, we're doing, the 23rd. So you want to sign up for this because this gets filled up quickly. We're doing an open shoot. Pro Photo's coming in on the 23rd with a bunch of equipment, and Cliff Hausner will be here. And we basically get some models, and we bring your camera, and we bring your cameras, and you guys get to shoot the models and interact and stuff. So you can put to use some of the things that we teach here. So that's the 23rd. And of course, we stream every Thursday at noon. So if you're on a date, you know, it's not going so well, you can always check in. We'll be here. So thanks for coming, guys.